Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Yusuf Aram. It's being called the 12-day war, but is it really over? For now, Iran and Israel have paused their attacks, but Tehran is demanding the UN Security Council label Israel and the U.S. as the aggressors for attacking its nuclear sites. Iran's parliament has also unanimously voted to suspend all cooperation with the UN's nuclear watchdog until it guarantees the country's security. France, Germany, and Britain have urged Iran not to abandon cooperation with the IAEA. But with its nuclear future uncertain, Tehran is taking a hard line, including the mass arrests and executions of those it claims are tied to Israeli intelligence. A potential meeting once floated by President Trump has firmly been rejected by Iran. After Supreme Leader Khamenei declared victory, Trump fired back, scrapping any plans for sanctions relief. But the impact of this conflict and a weakened Iran reaches beyond the Middle East. Could Azerbaijan feel empowered to push more aggressively on border issues? And could Armenia face growing uncertainty without Tehran's support? Furthermore, joining me now from Tehran is Hassan Ahmedian, an assistant professor on Middle East and North Africa at Tehran University. Professor Ahmedian, thanks for joining me. I want to open up with what's the feeling in Tehran? What's the feeling at the cafes? What's the feeling at the office when Iranians are getting together and talking about what happened over the past 2 weeks?
Well, you hear mixed feelings. You hear mixed, talks about what has been going on and whether or not this pause will hold. Majority, I would say, look at it as a pause, not a ceasefire necessarily, suggesting that there are more rounds to come. Well, there are those who worry about a continued protracted war, and there are those who see it necessary to uphold Iran's deterrence vis-a-vis Israel and the United States. I mean, you can hear all sorts of thoughts, but majority, to my surprise, at least within the war, based on the rally around the flag that we've seen, is basically backing a firm stance vis-a-vis Israel. Though they have worries about what that might entail for their daily life moving forward.
Mm-hmm. So you said that many people are viewing this as a pause, so I want to shift to the ceasefire right now. Why do they view this as a pause? And are American guarantees expected? And if there are American guarantees, would that be enough for Iran to view this as a more permanent ceasefire?
Yeah, we know that we were in talks with the United States when the war started, hours before the war, before the first attack the Israelis started. The U.S. president was saying there might be a conflict, but it's not it's not going to happen anytime soon. Hours later, Israel attacked. The Iranians, majority, I would say, are viewing the United States part of this attack on Iran, though indirectly, and then it joined basically by attacking Iran's nuclear sites. So U.S. guarantees are not something the Iranians are banking on. They don't see that as, guaranteeing any sort of long-term ceasefire. So this specifically because the United States is the guarantor, I think many are adopting this ceasefire to continue for a long period of time. Many actually are refraining from using the term ceasefire. They're talking about cessation of hostilities, that is a pause in a war that we've seen part of it or one battle of it so far. Many more might come moving forward.
Was the attack a surprise after the Americans said that it wouldn't happen anytime soon? And also over the past 2 weeks, what surprised you the most? The level of U.S. engagement, was it more or less than what you expected? Israeli firepower, was it more or less than what you expected? And Iran's performance, was it better or worse than what you expected?
Well, I think when it comes to surprises, only the first attack was surprising. I mean, the Iranian reaction, the public reaction to the war was to some extent a surprise. I mean, you know about lots of differences within the country, that we have seen many demonstrations for different reasons, economic, social freedoms, etc. But when it came to war, when the Israelis attacked the country, there has been sort of rally around the flag. You could hear it from people who are not that much satisfied with the political system here, but at the same time viewing Iran being in danger, not necessarily the system. And so you've seen that rally around the flag. The U.S. Backing of this assault was another issue, because Iran was engaged with the United States in a negotiations to solve the nuclear standoff politically and diplomatically. But at the same time, when the United States green-lighted the Israeli assault on Iran, and there's no doubt about it that the Israelis wouldn't have moved against Iran without a green light from the United States, the Iranians were not expecting that to happen. That's why you've seen Iranian commanders being hit in their homes. They didn't expect this blitzkrieg to come this fast, and this, in the fog of discussions and diplomacy between Iran and the United States. When it comes to Iran's retaliation, actually the Iranians moved from retaliating against a foe that happened back in October and May 2024 to strategic proportionality, that I think changed changed the tide of the war, in a matter that the Israelis understood, well, you can't get what you want, all of what you want. And so the ceasefire came in. And I think, that proportionality, many in Iran were not expecting it. Actually, when Iran stopped short of retaliating against Israel's latest attack before the war, that was October 2024, many were, accepting the narrative, which was mainly Israeli, that Iran is weakened. It doesn't have that much to shield itself with. But when the war started, the Iranians, moving to a retaliation on a proportionate manner, showed that they have the strength to defend the country with. And I think that changed a lot of the atmosphere within Iran and within Israel. The calculus there that they can hit and Iran can't retaliate. They can take out their commanders and Iran will be in shock, and then an uprising of the people will happen and bring down the system. All of that went away when the Iranian retaliation started.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask about the nuclear program. The way I see it, there's three options right now. Either say it's not worth the trouble, scrap it, heal the wounds and continue forward, or say these past 2 weeks showed that we need deterrence, let's double down and move forward. What do you think the thinking is in Tehran?
Building on Iran's strategic culture, I would say the Iranians will not succumb to pressure from outside. Now they have they're not in a good position now after a war, and gearing up for more to come, most probably. So they're not in a good position, but at the same time, giving in to Israeli and American specifically demands would lead them to step even further, demanding Iran to do more. And the Iranians know that is not a recipe for Iran's independence to be kept, and its territorial integrity, basically, that is, many believe is at the in the thinking in Israel, is also not guaranteed if Iran is to succumb. So the Iranians most likely will put pressure, counter the pressure with counter pressure against the United States and their narrative and pressure to tell them that this is not the way to go forward. You can deal with us diplomatically. We are not going to succumb to your demands. Now, for the time being, of course, the United States is talking, the President of the United States is talking about obliterated Iranian nuclear program. The Iranians, on the other side, are saying, well, we are assessing. They're not confirming nor denying the damage to their nuclear program. Of course, repairing the damages would take time for the Iranians after the assessment. And that time, I believe, will be used and exhausted for diplomatic engagement. Having said that, I don't think there is a daylight between Iranian strategic circles on the need to put pressure within the same file on the United States and on the IAEA that didn't come even with basically a announcement denouncing what the United States and Israel did, attacking Iran's nuclear sites that were under its supervision, under its basically control. It didn't even issue a statement, and that was really very annoying to the Iranians that have opened those sites to the IAEA and its inspectors, and so they see a group of governments and non-governmental organizations, international ones, in a pack moving against their nuclear program. The way to push back against it is to base your bet on international law, which guarantees Iran or gives Iran the right to enrich and have a peaceful nuclear program. That's the way I think the Iranians are calibrating their move forward.
So the Iran-U.S. relationship, first, is it still existent? What is it going to take for diplomacy, at least the actors, to come back to the table? And what type of conditions need to be met for a summit between the Ayatollah and POTUS?
I don't think we are there anytime soon, because you see, negotiations brought Iran under attack, basically. Iran negotiated with the United States only for it to greenlight an Israeli assault on Iran. And the United States joined hand in attacking Iran's nuclear program. The Iranians negotiated with the E3 during the war to see the United States joining Israel in attacking. Previously, the Iranians signed a deal back in 2015 to see the United States renege on it and put more pressure, the maximum pressure on Iran's economy. And so Iran doesn't have that much faith in U.S. talking points, in its diplomacy, and the minimal trust that the Iranians have built the past 3 months was shattered due to this attack and the U.S. backing it. So I think we are far back from where we started with President Trump 3 months ago. And I think that's not an ideal situation for a diplomatic engagement between Iran and the United States. But at the same time, I think the Iranians also are seeing the necessity for engagement. And as such, they wouldn't be the party that leaves the table. They will bring their preconditions on the table. They will talk about them. And I think the United States also will continue that. But that track leading to a deal or some sort of de-escalation is really not there at this time.
Mm-hmm. One last question. The perception in the Western media is that the regime took major hits during this 2-week war. How do you view their health? Have they come out of this stronger and more at one with the people, or is there distance? Is there some estrangement between the Iranian people and the leadership?
I think downplaying the damage that was, was imposed on the country is not realistic. The Israelis came with a surprise attack and took out many commanders and scientists and attacked many of Iranian aerospace divisions, bases. The damage is big. But at the same time, Iran resorting to strategic proportionality in that retaliating against strategic assets within Israel with the same value that it is hitting within Iran, I think has changed much of the equation. Mm-hmm. And you've heard President Trump suggesting that Iran was hitting hard the last 2 days of the war and Israel was receiving much damage. And I believe him, because by the end of the war, the Iranians resorted to their more sophisticated missiles to hit back. That is Fattah, Sijil, and then most problematic for the Israelis, the Khaybar Shikan one, which was really devastating in its effect on the ground. I think that proportionality at the end, and the United States not willing to join Israel in this war, but symbolically has forced the Israelis to revisit their aims from this war that they announced initially: change of the regime, taking out the nuclear program, taking out Iran missiles capability. None of that was achieved, actually. None of that is guaranteed. And so that's on the military side. And I think the Iranians, by preconditioning their acceptance of the ceasefire with them having the final hit, showed that they are there and they have their capabilities and they can hit even beyond that. So they were gearing up basically for a protracted war. And militarily, so I don't think that the Iranians have lagged behind Israel, but at the same time, there's another aspect that is the people system connection within Iran. There is no doubt that there are lots of problems within Iran economically, and I think you have reported on it. Many other channels have reported on previous, demonstrations for different reasons. But when the war started, that unity within the country came to the fore, and I think that was not in the calculus on the part of the Israelis, and I think that also have remedied much of the weakness that United States and Israel saw within Iran, wanted to bank on it, and that didn't let them to take advantage of the problems that Iran is facing within.
It definitely looks like a complicated situation. Professor Ahmedian, thank you for joining me. Thank you for sharing your insight.